Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and again, thanks for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button because we get to talk to some pretty amazing people. And our next guest is a NASCAR driver, a motivational speaker, and an advocate for STEM education and more. It's Julia Landauer. Julia, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So many different things I want to ask you. But to start off, just in general, your career is so interesting to me, and I want to know how you got interested in car racing in the beginning and what it was like for that very first professional race with NASCAR.
For sure. So I started racing go-karts when I was 10 years old. And originally it was an activity that my parents wanted me to get into, but also my younger sister and brother, partially so that we could all do something together on the weekends, partially because I think my dad really wanted to race when he was little. But then also it was a very technology-centric sport where women and men, boys and girls could compete head-to-head with each other to the highest levels. So that was really cool. I loved it. I started winning right away. And then I moved to cars when I was 13, won my first championship in the Skip Barber Racing Series when I was 14, and then continued to climb the ranks. Switched over to NASCAR NASCAR style when I was about 16. And I would say my first really pro race in NASCAR was when I was in 2015 when I raced in a limited late model series in Virginia at a racetrack called Motor Mile Speedway. And it was the first time where I was out of college and didn't have to balance school with racing. And I was really nervous, really excited, had no excuses. And I ended up winning half the races and then became their champion. So that was really cool. I feel like for me, that was my confirmation that I deserved to be there. And then it's been fun ever since.
Yeah, I would say being a champion right out of the gate is a pretty good way to start off with that. One of the things you also mentioned too on the technological side, and I find that really interesting. And you just recently tweeted something about following along with your heart rate data over a 2-hour practice. And I was wondering how that ties in to your performance and your training. How does tracking something like that help out for a race?
Definitely. Well, first and foremost, racers are totally athletes. It's really hot in the cars. It's sometimes over 130 degrees inside the car. We're fighting the G forces. It's thousands of pounds of metal that you're driving around, and so it's really important to be in good physical shape and have good endurance. And so I started using my Polar watch a few years ago just to be able to monitor my heart rate, make sure I was getting enough calories also. But it's really important because what I found in that 2-hour practice session, and that's not even the intensity of racing, that's just, practice, is that my heart rate reached 184 beats per minute and its average was 137. So having that data and those biometrics to be able to incorporate into my training with my trainer, Podium Performance Fitness in the Charlotte area, is really crucial just for optimizing our performance, just like any other athlete.
Interesting. Yeah. Is there any other piece of technology that you use with that as far as the actual training side, or a piece of tech that you wish you could incorporate into racing?
Yeah, so a couple of different things that we use. One, on a very basic level, just use a lot of apps and a lot of, mind games. And before I get in the car, I do different kind of reaction time games on my app because I noticed in training, I would then go back and do something physical and it was that much better and more reactive. So I use that very simple tool. We do a bunch of neurological training on that note. And then also we use things like strobe goggles to really help minimize our visual input so that when we're in the car, when we've got distractions going on, we can still react really quickly. And the thing that I love, I'm racing in the European NASCAR series this year. What I really love is that we have in-car data analytics, so we can see everything from throttle pressure to brakes to RPMs. And being able to really analyze that data helps me as a racer. Some people just, go out and feel what they need to do. I find the data really helpful because it's very concrete. Like, this is where you can do better, so go do it. And
Right.
Then it just makes it really easy.
I love that incorporation. I mean, naturally, we're a technology, but I love that incorporation of it to add into that, and in addition to being an athlete using that, and something else I want to talk about too is just the STEM education side of things. Now, I know you're a big advocate for it, and there are a lot of changes and things that need to happen with that. But what are some of the big challenges that women and girls face for STEM career paths?
Well, I think it's a loaded question. I think a couple of things. One, access. I mean, really quality STEM education, whether it's on the coding side or the more mechanical side, it's not available everywhere. And so I think that's a big part of it. But also there's a cultural component where, girls who are good at math and science and technical fields are considered nerdy or not liked, or, there are all these negative connotations with it. So I think trying to fight that, but then also to be supportive of girls who want to go into these different careers and to show early on what you can do out there. And, how many, like all industries incorporate some aspect of STEM. And so while it's not for everybody, I think if you see a little girl who's interested and you can help push those spatial awareness games and, tech games, I think you really get to see, oh, maybe she wants to do this. So a lot of it's in home, a lot of it's in school. There are a lot of different components, just like anything. But I think the stereotypes and the, not encouraging girls to go after technological fields or STEM fields is really where there's a big obstacle.
Yeah, that's a huge one. And that's very interesting, some of the different things that you just said right there as far as different ways to engage and make sure that people can get into this field if they want to get into that or encourage that. Something I wanted to ask you, being now that you're obviously a role model for a lot of people yourself and you're in this field, for you coming up, who were some of your role models?
Yeah, so great question. I have a couple in the industry. So Lynn St. James has been a mentor of mine. She was a really successful female racer, is now retired. And so she was huge. Honestly, people like Paul Newman, who got to, he set his heart to something and he went and did a lot of different things, which I think is really cool, that Renaissance person kind of mentality. And then also, greats like Michael Schumacher and Mark Martin. I think really seeing people excel and go after what they want and ask questions and, demand the performance of their team. I think that's just a really cool thing to have. And drivers really are kind of the leaders of their teams, where everyone's at the track so that we can drive fast and go try to win some races. So being able to look up to those guys and ladies and, see how they do stuff and try to pick what I like about it and then incorporate it into my own life has been a lot of fun.
I love that. Well, I could definitely see why you're a motivational speaker in addition to being a NASCAR champion. So this all makes sense. For everybody out there too, I want them to know how to follow along with everything you're doing, whether it's racing or whether it's talking in social media. Where should I direct people to follow you?
For sure. Thank you. So my website, you see that, julialandauer.com, also at Julia Landauer across all social media. I update all of them regularly. It's a little different sometimes, but it's really fun to interact with fans and with people who are just interested in some of the same stuff. So I love hearing from you. Please feel free to reach out and go after what you want. I just tweeted yesterday that, you don't have to justify your dreams to anybody. It's just about going after them with conviction. And I think that's something that's really important, especially in this day and age. So that would be my last words of advice.
Yeah, you nailed it. Julia, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you for having me.